Hello, welcome to another book video. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about audiobooks I recommend you listen. In 2025, I discovered my obsession with audiobooks. I believe I started listening to audiobooks either in 2024 or 2023. Either way, I was not that big of a fan of them up until this year. I had it in my mind that I couldn't connect with the characters or fall in love with the story through audiobooks. But in 2025, in the beginning of the year, I found a 5-star read while listening to the audiobook, and it completely changed my mindset on being able to find books that you love just as much as if you were to read them. I also think that audiobooks is easily the fastest and easiest way to get through books while you're doing your day-to-day stuff. The amount of books I've gone through while doing chores, while doing hobbies, while driving is pretty incredible. I can get through roughly 4 audiobooks a month, but I only have 8 books here that I recommend because I'm only going to be recommending you books that I genuinely was obsessed with the story. Of course, these are book recommendations, but with the narrator, with the voice acting, with the audiobook in general as well. But with these books right here, I feel like they're pretty foolproof. These are books that I would recommend, not to everyone. I feel like there's certain books for certain people, so I wanted to make sure that I have a little bit of everything so that you hopefully have a book that you will love. Now, to the very first book, it's going to be The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini. This is a story that I have been thinking about a ton after reading it, and I feel like for me personally, that is one of the fun things about books, is when it follows you after you're done with the story, because it means that you really were touched by the story. It's very memorable, it's enjoyable enough that you're still thinking about it after you're done. There's plenty of books that I honestly have not thought about since I stopped reading them, and this story is not one of those. I'm a little hesitant to start this video off with this book because this is a very hard story. This isn't something for everyone because of all of the hardships that our main character witnesses and experiences. So I would say with any of the books that I'm talking about, I would recommend you search up the trigger warnings just to protect your mental health. This is a book that I almost DNF'd because it was so hard to bear, but the way that the story wrapped up was honestly mind-blowing. It was incredible writing. I have never heard a story told the way that this one is, and I would recommend the audiobook in particular because since it's based in Afghanistan and our main characters speak, I had to search up the language because I couldn't remember. It's Dari, which is a dialect of Farsi spoken in Afghanistan. So there's a lot of words in this book that I literally do not know because it's in a different language. And I think I would have DNF'd it if I would have read it, because not being able to articulate these words or literally read the words, I think it would have overwhelmed me. A big part of this story is based in Afghanistan, and so there's food and language and culture that I am unaware of, and I think listening to the story helps really immerse you into that world. I think when you're reading it, it could be a little overwhelming to not know what the certain words are, the certain food that they're talking about, but I think when it's just told to you, it's easier to comprehend. At least it is for me. Also, the author, Khaled Hosseini, narrated the story himself, which I just love. It's one of my most favorite things when I discover an audiobook that's actually read by the author, and I think he did a spectacular job. In this book, we're following Amir and Hassan, and Hassan is the son of the servant that works for the father of Amir, and so the main plot of the story is we're following Amir and the relationship that he has with Hassan. It talks about Amir growing up in Afghanistan and the games that he would play as a child and the movies that he was obsessed with, and it also followed him as a teenager and going into adulthood when he moves to America with his father, and it literally goes through an entire timeline of his life. I forgot to mention, this story made me cry. I literally was eating chili. I was eating dinner. I say it's chili because I think it's so funny. Like, how odd. I was just eating chili, I was eating dinner, and something really sad happened and I just start crying while I'm eating my chili. It didn't stop me from eating dinner, but I definitely had tears going down my face while I was eating dinner. I would rate this book a 4.75. After finishing the book, I just thought, I have never heard a story that's like this, with messy characters, unlikable characters, characters that you just can't fathom, but characters that you just love and are rooting for. I thoroughly enjoyed my time with this book, even though it was hard to listen to at times. So these are for the people who like books that make them feel pain. Now onto a more lighter note, I'm going to be talking about To All the Boys I Love by Jenny Han. I binge listened to this trilogy, I think in like a month or month and a half. I could not get enough of this story. This is easily a 5-star read for me. I am obsessed with Laura Jean. So the first book is To All the Boys I Loved Before. Then we have P.S. I Still Love You and Always and Forever Laura Jean. I would be listening to this story any chance that I had, when I was cooking, when I was doing chores, when I had time to just sit on the couch and just absorb the story. I stayed up late to finish the story. I loved it. I love YA so much. Something about following the characters in school and the self-development and just the teenage years. I love books that are like this. I won't tell you everything that happens in the books, obviously, so I'm just going to be talking about the first book. In this book, we're following Laura Jean, who has a younger sister and an older sister, and she lives with her dad. And in the beginning of the book, I want to say it starts off in the end of summer. She's about to start either sophomore year or junior year, I can't quite remember, in high school. The main premise of the story as well is she wrote 5 love letters to 5 individual boys that she ever fell in love with throughout her childhood and as she got older as a teenager. And she has all 5 of these love letters in a little hat box safe in her room. And one day she goes into school and she realizes that all of those love letters have reached those boys that she wrote them about. So of course, naturally, she's horrified and has no idea how these letters even got to them. And she ends up finding herself in these sticky situations where there's a little bit of fake dating. I feel like our character was so fun to read about. She was a huge baker, so it was a lot of fun to read about her making cookies, and she was really huge in crafting. The relationship that she has with her sisters is also so beautiful. It's so tight-knit, but messy things ends up happening that's just enjoyable to listen to. I think the narrator did an awesome job as well. It just felt like I was hanging out with a 16-year-old while she's going through life and trying to discover what type of person that she is and learning from her mistakes and having crushes with boys and going to prom. And this is one of my favorite YA trilogies in general, but I loved the audiobooks so much. Now to Out of Love by Hazel Hayes. So when I was talking about how I didn't know if I could find a 5-star while listening to the audiobook because I felt like I couldn't really connect with characters, and then it completely changed, it was this book. This is the book that completely changed my mindset on audiobooks. When I finished listening to this, I realized, wow, I can fall in love with the characters, I can root for them, I can just like feel all of the emotions as I would if I was reading it. I love this book so much. It's also a 5-star read for me, and I do not hear enough people talk about this book, and that's why any chance that I get, I will rave about this story. The narrator, and what hooked me immediately, is she has a Irish, Scottish. I just discovered that Hazel Hayes herself narrates Out of Love. So it is an Irish accent. What? How did I not know this? I thought it was... Why did I think it was someone else? It makes me love it that much more. It's because after listening to this, I felt like I was best friends with Hazel Hayes. And I don't think I felt like that since listening to this. So to come to find out that Hazel Hayes herself was a narrator, I don't know how I didn't find that out. The reason that I was trying to figure out who was a narrator was because I was trying to figure out what the accent was. Hazel is Irish. She has an Irish accent. I love accents so much. Southern accents, Australian accents, Scottish, Irish. I love those accents. So the fact that this entire book was narrated by someone who has an Irish accent, 11 whole hours of pure beauty. I loved it. I'm just like reliving all of the feelings that this book gave me by talking about it. So in this book, we never know the actual main character's name. It's never told to us. I just fell in love with that because it felt, and the way that it was written, it was as if I was sitting on the couch with my best friend and she is telling me these wild stories that she experienced. So it really felt like I was just hanging out with a friend and I was hearing her characters, hearing her story. There is a few parts in this book where she is literally telling her friend what has happened, and so it really does feel that way. It just feels like she's telling you a story. The reason that I bought this book as well is because it says that it's a love story told in reverse. Usually in these love stories, they meet each other for the first time and we follow the characters as they're navigating their relationship, and then they have a happily ever after. This is literally the quite opposite. In the beginning of the story, we're following our main character trying to navigate a fresh breakup, and we're going past tense to when she is falling in love with the character when they move in for the first time. Also, a really big thing that I loved about this story is the relationship that she had with her best friend. I feel like her best friend became my best friend at the end. I feel like I became best friends with the main character. I had the best time listening to this story. I did not want it to end. It was such a bingeable one. Honestly, if you're gonna take any recommendation from this video, it would be this one. I would also encourage you to search up the trigger warnings in this book because there is hard things that happen. I feel like everything about this story I loved. The way that it was told, the storytelling, the writing, the narrator, the Irish accent, how it made you sad, how it made you laugh, how it had you rooting for the character. To me, this book was perfect. The last 3 books that I'm going to talk about, I'm going to talk about them as a unit because they're all memoirs. The first one is I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy, The Woman in Me by Britney Spears, Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zoner. I am obsessed with memoirs. I think listening to someone's story is so special. Both of these books were narrated by the actual author. Like, they're literally telling you their story. Specifically for memoirs, they are literally telling you their own story, and I feel like they're so talented enough to write these books, and books that are so good, but the fact that they can narrate it, I think is awesome. Out of the 3, this one has to be the funniest. She truly made me laugh so much. Her humor was so good. She also had like that dry humor that I love. The main part of the story, of course, because of the title, is the relationship that she has with her mother, but it's also more than that. It's her growing up, her going into acting, talk of iCarly. In this book, a huge part of the story is the relationship that she had with her mom, but also her Korean ethnicity with the Korean food. She also is half white, so she talks a lot about being too white, being too Korean, being bullied for being white, being bullied for being Korean. And with this book, it starts off with her being a little girl growing up in Louisiana and going through childhood acting and becoming a woman, and the boyfriends that she would have and the fame that she got and the horrible things that her parents did with controlling her like none other. It talks about her singing career, it talks about the VMAs and the hard labor that she put her body through with being a singer and going through tour. Those are all the books that I'm going to be talking about in today's video. These are all books that I recommend you read, but specifically give the audiobooks a shot. I feel like with some of these books you won't have the same experience if you would have read them. Like, for example, with the Kite Runner or even with the memoirs, I think something about listening to it, it gives you a completely different experience than if you would just to read it. That is going to be it for today's video. Thank you so very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.